Hello, welcome to my journey to the media world. It's been a while since I've done one of these, hasn't it? Delighted to say that I'm joined by Jason Guy, the host of the Wolf Whistle podcast. But not only is he the host of the Wolf Whistle podcast, he's now written a book. Jason, first of all, how are you?
I'm all right, Jude. But more importantly, how are you? Because I know you've been in hospital, you've been undergoing a lot of treatment, and it's good to see you back performing and working hard. So how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Thank you. It's great to be back home. As you know, when you spent so long in hospital, you sort of get used to surroundings. But no, it's good to be back home, and it's good to be getting back to some normality, doing the stuff I love. Thank you for the support from you and from everyone else that is watching.
Problem.
Right.
How's your corner flag?
Pardon?
How's your corner flag?
The corner flag, great, mate. We found out what era it's from. I don't know if you saw on Twitter. It's from the Martin O'Neill days, and it's got the likes of Brad Friedel, Curtis Davis,
Brilliant.
Gareth Barry, all those types of players. So yeah, thank you, mate. It's brilliant.
Hey, no problem at all. You're very welcome.
Without further ado, we mentioned in the intro about how you've written a book, Tales from the Tape. It is called. First of all,
Yes.
Jason, how did this idea come about? I've heard a bit about it in lockdown, but was this a thing that just happened in lockdown, or was it always something that you had in the back of your mind?
To be honest, I started the podcast on a bit of a whim, and I didn't know really where they'd go. And I was interviewing former players and getting some great stories. And obviously, this has developed over time. And I think I've now interviewed over 60 odd former Wolves players. And listen, what I'm beginning to appreciate is, and you'll see this, Jude, that not everybody is in the digital age. And with podcasts and the videos you do, you are aiming at a certain audience. But there's another audience out there that still see, and prefer to see things in black and white. So I basically wrote a couple of chapters out. I basically transcripted the podcast into a couple of chapters, sent it to the players, and they said, "What do you think?" And they said, "That'd be a great idea." And I've now nearly completed the book, 35 chapters, and it's in chronological order. So it starts off with Terry Wharton, then Phil Parkes, then Steve Daly, Kenny Hibbett, all the way through to present day with sort of Michael Kightly and Carl Ikeme. And it's basically their journey at Wolves. But because it's in chronological order, the chapters really all morph into one. So it's a bit of a story. So it's going really well. And it's going to be out in February 2021, next Feb. And we're raising money for breast cancer now and for the Royal Wolverhampton Trust NHS neonatal department that have been looking after my daughter recently. So, yeah, that's it. You read many books then, Jude?
I'll be honest, prior to me obviously being in this situation, I weren't a massive reader, but since then, I've been reading a lot more. I've got a lot of football books that I've been getting down, and I've got a subscription to The Athletic. So I think I found from me being an aspiring journalist, reading is the best thing for me. And like, if you could pick out sort of stuff that you'd read, then that's great in an interview. So you mentioned there about how it goes in chronological order.
Yes.
Starts right from the 60s. So how does it start? Do you literally just start with the interviews from the Wolf Whistle podcast, which you've obviously done over audio?
Yeah, so I interviewed a player called Terry Wharton who played for Wolves in the 60s. So that was the first one. And, he tells his story about how he come to Wolves from his native Bolton and how he ended up back at Bolton. Then he mentions the players he played with, Phil Parkes. And then the next interview happens to be Phil Parkes. He tells about his journey at Wolves. And, he mentions players he played with, Steve Daly and Kenny Hibbett. Then they tell their stories. So it's actually worked quite well. And I didn't actually set out to do that. What I set out to do was just stories, and I was going to just put them in no particular order. And then I realised that chronologically it could tell a better story. And that's how it's worked so far, to be honest. So, like I said, it's a lot of work. It's 35 chapters, which is working out at the minute about 120,000 words. So, it's been quite tough. And I started it in lockdown. And, like everyone, we was all thinking of things to do, and that's when I started it, and then it sort of took over my life. So it's been a lot of work. So I've been working on it for the past 6 odd months. But there is light now at the end of the, well, longer than that actually, it's about 8 months. Light at the end of the tunnel now, or as they say, Wolves, out of darkness cometh light. So we're nearly there. And when I've finished it, Jude, there's a copy with your name on, which will be winging its way over to you. And I know you're not a Wolves fan, but there's still plenty of good stories, and there's actually plenty of stories which mention Aston Villa as well. So I'm sure you'll enjoy reading it.
Thank you, mate. I may not be a Wolf fan, but I'm a football fan in general, so I'll definitely have a read into that. Thank you, Jason. You mentioned there about how it's got stories right from the 60s right up until now, and in fact your catchphrase is confined to the Waterloo
Yes.
Road dressing room for many years. Have you got any
Yes.
little tasters that you can give us, or any little hints from the book?
You put me right on the spot. This was a good question. I mean, what's quite interesting is there's stories not just obviously from Wolves, from when players are at other clubs, and you know, there's a couple of stories where players have had arguments in the dressing room. There's one I particularly like where Colin Lee, who was manager of Wolves, and it was him and Mark McGee that shared the managerial duties. Mark being the manager and Colin being the coach. And then Mark McGee got sacked and Colin Lee didn't. And he was expecting Colin to come with him, and that wasn't the case, because Colin said I had a mortgage to pay and I couldn't just leave my job. So he had to help Mark McGee unpack all his belongings, you know, from his desk into black bin liners, and literally get the bin liner and give it to Mark to go. And you know, I just couldn't believe that story. And then there's other ones where Matt Foreman, who was a player who played for Wolves in the 80s, said after the loss to Chorley 3-0, he says, I'm reading the newspaper, and one of the cartoons illustrations was a wolf in a coffin, and the coffin being nailed down. And obviously that was one of the lowest points in Wolves history, losing 3-0 to Chorley in the FA Cup. And to be honest, these are stories that I'd never heard before. So I was asking questions on the podcast, and questions as you do to your subjects when you're interviewing them. And to be honest, I didn't know half of these stories, so it was educational for me as well. And a lot of the players that I interview actually say there is, you know, they've never ever told these stories before, and they've been on other podcasts, they've been on other interviews in the media, and they've never told these stories before. So that's why the stories I know have been stuck in that dressing room for years and years and years, and now finally they're coming out.
Yeah, that sounds brilliant, and I think it just proves why it's such a unique book, with so many different stories. Now, you mentioned earlier in an interview about the important charities that are obviously close to your heart. Just explain a little bit more about them, and obviously the funds, all of the funds that go into those charity
Yeah,
items.
so I lost my last wife to breast cancer in 2015. So I decided to raise money, obviously, for breast cancer now. And recently, New Cross Hospital, the neonatal department there, have been looking after my daughter, Olivia. She's home now. And I've just seen the first-hand work they do. So what I decided was that any profits from the book go directly to both charities, split equally. And I'm very pleased to say, Jude, that I launched the book last, I think it was Sunday night, and by Monday I'd sold all 150 subscriber copies, which I just couldn't believe. And for that reason, the book is now already in profit. So with that money, the book's paid for, and there's actually money going to money there ready to go to charity. So I just can't believe how quickly it's gone. So the book is actually being funded by the people who've bought it. And then the charity benefit immediately, which is fantastic. So I've worked it out. I'm hoping to raise a minimum £2,500 for each charity, so about £5,000 minimum. But once again, I couldn't do that without all the kind people that have bought it. I just hope that they do enjoy the book, which I'm sure they will. There's some fantastic stories, and you know, and obviously the most important thing is they're supporting two great causes.
Yeah, definitely. The links will be in the description, guys, to donate to those brilliant causes. Please do. They're amazing courses. I think that just gives a brilliant reason for you guys, if you're Wolf fan, football fans in general, to go out and buy the book. So, Jason, do you want to explain more on how these guys can go and get the book?
If they make contact with me on Twitter, which is at Wolves Premier or at Wolf Whistle Pod, they can pre-order the book, and it's out in February. And I've got to be honest with you, even if you're not a Wolves fan, it's still an interesting read. And I've had, believe it or not, I've had fans from all over the world, country, who've seen it on Twitter, who very kindly donated. And there is some great stories from, like I said, it's not just Wolves stories. There is some great stories, in football. So, it's something for everyone, really. So I'm sure they'll enjoy it. Obviously, there's a Wolves bias to it, but I'm sure they'll enjoy it. And yet, if they contact me, they can get a copy, and it'll be out February.
Jason, it's been a pleasure to be able to chat with you. The links will be in the description, as I say, guys, all for a brilliant cause, and you're in for a right treat, as Jason has explained there. So make sure you follow Jason on all his socials and donate if you can. It's been a pleasure to be back doing this face-to-face with you, Jason, albeit over Zoom. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe, and until next time, goodbye. I would normally say up the Villa, but I wouldn't in this circumstance. So over to you, Jason.
Jude, thank you for obviously time on your platform today. Keep up the good work. Keep making sure you look after yourself as well. I've got to say, you're looking very healthy and well. So look after yourself and keep doing what you're good at, and hopefully we'll see lots more of you soon.
Thanks, Jason. It's been a pleasure. Hit the subscribe button and follow my journey to the media world. Click the video choices on screen to see more of my work.